Okay, welcome everybody. We are going to get started with the formal part of the evening, or semi-formal part of the evening. So if you all want to either find a seat, if you need a seat, or find a spot where you can hear and see comfortably for about the next 30 minutes. We've got a little bit of speaking and reading to go.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to make a few comments first. I'm going to try not to keep it too long because I know you want to hear from Gina and hear a reading from her novel that I see a lot of you have purchased this evening. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Welcome to the launch party for Gina's debut novel, Remember the Ladies. And not only thank you to all of you who are sitting here tonight, but thank you to all of you who are watching us online around the country tonight. So as this camera spins around during the evening, you may be seen by who knows who around the country, so just be aware of that. So thank you all for joining us tonight. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Grant Mulligan. I am Gina's husband. So tonight has certainly been a long time coming, and we both very much appreciate all of you being here tonight, taking time out to help us celebrate her achievement and just have a celebration together. I want to say a few thank yous before we continue. Several people have made this party possible and made it as entertaining as it has been, in addition to Gina. First of all, we have Jennifer Reason, who has been playing the piano tonight, the pianist. It's fabulous. Thank you very much. Joshua Ray is the roaming magician that several of you have enjoyed tonight. Steve Walker from Point Source Sound is our sound engineer tonight, providing all the equipment you see here. The three of them also have something in common with us in that they work together with RSVP, which is the singing group that I'm in. So if you come to our next concerts in November, you'll see Jennifer is our artistic director and sings alto. Josh is our bass, and Steve does sound there. We've worked together a long time, and there are several other singers in the audience tonight that are with that group, so thank you all for coming. Also, Christian Hollingsworth, who is working the camera tonight, and his assistant, Barrett. They're doing the live video feed. They're also sending out tweets and Facebook posts tonight, so thank you very much for all the work that you're doing. Mark Cohen, our photographer, is floated on. There we go, Mark Cohen. In a moment, you'll hear from Mallory Monachino, who's going to be doing the reading tonight, and Majel, right? Majel, yes, with Time-Tested Books, and a lot of you have met her already. She was the one taking your money tonight, so thank you very much to her. In addition to being Gina's husband, I am her proofreader, her sounding board, her marketing agent, and eye-rolling recipient. And I also am the treasurer for Gina's charity, Girls Love Mail. You saw the table when you first came in. You see some signs around. As you know, tonight is not just a book launch event, but it's also a fundraising event for Girls Love Mail. All of Gina's author royalties, she has graciously donated to Girls Love Mail to further the work of that organization. So most of you know, just a little bit about Girls Love Mail, most of you know that Girls Love Mail collects handwritten letters of encouragement for women going through treatment for breast cancer or who are newly diagnosed with that illness. What you may not know is that many of you were the inspiration for that charity being started. Gina was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2009, and at the time she received over 200 cards and letters, many of which were from you. And I can't say thank you enough for the encouragement that you were to her at that very difficult time. But one other thing that you did is that quite a number of you told your friends about her situation, and they wrote cards and letters to her. And seeing all of that, both from friends and family, but strangers who cared enough to write something to her, told her how important, how valuable, and how healing a written word can be. And so when she was clear of her diagnosis, and when she was through that, she founded Girls Love Mail in 2011. And I can still remember the day sitting in our bedroom when she said, "Hey, I have an idea." And since that idea, they have collected and distributed over 65,000 letters to women around the country who are diagnosed with breast cancer. They distribute over 2,000 letters a month. They go out to 150 cancer centers around the country in nearly every state in the union. Once the letters arrive at the cancer centers, they're distributed by patient navigators, some of whom I think are here tonight from the local area. Patient navigators and other healthcare staff who deliver the letters to the women when they're newly diagnosed, and on a day when they're getting some pretty bad news, they're also given a word of encouragement from someone to let them know that it's going to be okay and that they are not alone going through that. Gina still has all of the cards and letters that you and your friends wrote to her. She has them in a box at home. And through Gina and Girls Love Mail, your words to her still speak. And I appreciate that very much. Every book you buy tonight, every book you buy online or wherever else you may buy it, wherever your friends that you recommend the book to, wherever they buy it, the book clubs that buy it, every single book that's sold will raise money for Girls Love Mail. So I hope that you will see this as an opportunity not only to share with people what a wonderful book you've discovered, but what a wonderful opportunity to help the organization. Before you leave, please visit the Girls Love Mail table, pick up some brochures. There are signs that you can read about all the media attention that Gina's received, including being on the Steve Harvey Show, being in Woman's Day magazine, and some pretty impressive things that the charity has been able to do. Now, about Gina. It is estimated that less than 0.5% of all book manuscripts that get written and submitted for publication actually get accepted. And after Gina put in well over her 10,000 hours developing her skills and her as a writer and a novelist, she has achieved this elite level of success not once but twice. Not only tonight with Remember the Ladies, but her second novel, From Across the Room, was picked up for publication, which is a very uncommon occurrence for a debut novelist. So she has her second book coming out in October. So fantastic for her. And at this point, I am very proud to introduce the person you all came to see, as seen on TV, my beautiful wife, author of the acclaimed novel Remember the Ladies, Gina L. Mulligan.
Gosh, thank you. Yes, I probably thought I'd be taller. Am I taller on television? No. Being on television is mostly a lot of hair and makeup and nerves, so it's not that glamorous. Thank you all for coming. Everyone came. Thank you so much. You throw a party and you always kind of wonder, I'm going to throw a party, no one's going to show up. Then what happens? I don't even know. I got notes. I've forgotten what I'm supposed to say. I'm overwhelmed. So, as Grant mentioned, I started writing quite a long time ago. I actually started writing 20 years ago. Right out of college, I started writing, and I worked on books that were just kind of starting and put aside. And I worked for magazines. I wrote for magazines for years as a freelance writer. And then about 15 years ago, we went to the Hotel Del Coronado in San Diego. I'm sure some of you have been there. It's beautiful. And we were walking around the hotel, and I thought, I wonder what it was like when it opened, when it was new. Well, it opened in 1888. Didn't know that, but I learned that. And that started this whole journey of research and love of the Gilded Age, really. It's a fascinating era. It's wonderful to write in. There's scandals and intrigue and beautiful dresses and sugar nippers. And if you don't know what those are, I'll tell you later. They're really cool stuff. And so that got me started. And so I started working on this book and the second one that Grant mentioned 13 years ago. It's been 13 years to get here today, plus 20 whatever total of writing. So we're throwing a party. I'm like, you know what, we're just throwing a party. It's been a long time coming, what the heck. So part of the reason too, Girls Love Mail, Grant told you about the charity, but I was working on this and my other novel when I went through breast cancer treatment and when I was diagnosed. And it kept me going. Obviously I had other things to think about and do. But the one thing I like to remind myself of and others is I was diagnosed with breast cancer on February 9th, 2009. That same date, a year later, February 9th, was when I got my call from my first agent to say that they had accepted my book. And it was the exact same date to the day. And so it was such a positive experience to say what can happen in a year and what kind of good things can happen in a year. So that was exciting for me personally. Okay, so the book, Remember the Ladies. So this whole story came about. I was researching and poking around, and I ran across that women were lobbyists in the late 1800s. Now, I did not know this, maybe I'm just dumb, but I never thought about that women were actually lobbyists before we had the right to vote. And that got me thinking, what was that like, right? What was it like to be a woman in that era, to want to have a voice in the world, and I can't even cast a vote. And I'm now going to try to encourage, in this male-dominated arena, encourage others to do my voting for me. So I started thinking about this and creating the story. And then I ran across a proposed 16th Amendment. And there really was a proposed 16th Amendment that would have granted voting rights in the 1887. So I knew I had a story. Like, that is just too juicy to leave alone. So I started working on that, and just 13 years later, overnight, you write a book, it's all done, it's all easy, and you have a book. And so we're gonna, let me tell you about the story a little bit more, and then actually I'm gonna have a reader. I'm not gonna read tonight. I don't like to read out loud my own work. It's my party, and so I decided to get a reader. I don't have to. So luckily I know a few people. I've called in every favors over the years to do this tonight. But so the story is about Amelia Cook. Maybe some of you read the inside cover, but she is a fictional character in 1887, and she's a lobbyist. And we meet her as an orphan. She's orphaned at a very young age, and she's raised by matrons in kind of this society of the mid-1800s. And so it's very much the male-dominated arena to start with. The boys learn math and science, and the girls are segregated. They learn how to, do a household, and that's about it. And at a really early age, she rails against this. She's very intelligent and driven, and she wants to learn more. She wants to do more. So she's emancipated at 18 and goes out into the world and really knows she has to find a place for herself. And so she does that. She runs into Sam Ward, which is a character we read about, who's a real guy. Sam Ward was king of the lobbyists. Great guy if you want to read some interesting history about a real person. He's this very gregarious, bigger-than-life personality. And so she kind of badgers him, and he trains her to become a lobbyist. And the story then goes on to this proposed 6th Amendment. She's hired to lobby on behalf of this amendment, and her big opposition is Senator Edward Stillman. Now, Edward Stillman is kind of your standard politician, right? He's very charismatic and handsome and very driven and very corrupt. And that was just that. That's not now, right? Oh. There's nothing that is common today. So he really wants to push the amendment down, really for his own personal gain and political gain, a career gain, and also him and Amelia had a little affair in the past, so it didn't end well, and so he wants to bring her down personally. So the story is the main part of the story is really this political chess game of these two on this vote. So the part that Mallory's going to read for us is part of chapter 2. It's a revised reading for the time to keep it shorter. But we meet Amelia. She's just been emancipated out of the orphanage. She's been on her own, but she's now 18. She's going off to work at a factory in Arkansas. And that's a nod to my mother-in-law, who's from Arkansas. That's how I picked that area. And our reader, I'm going to introduce Mallory. So let me read Mallory's bio. So Mallory Menechino is a budding performer and yoga instructor. And she is thrilled to read for us, and I can tell you I'm thrilled to have you here reading. As a former competitive synchronized swimmer, from an early age, Mallory has always had a passion for putting on a show, and realized after several years spent as a jewelry artist and personal trainer that it isn't just her creativity that she enjoys, but also the connection one makes with others through live performance. She was last seen on stage in the EMH production of Look Back in Anger as Helena Charles, and is also known for her role as the female lead in the short film Labyrinth, written and directed by Lonnan Smith. And Mallory will be returning to the stage this summer in the Main Street Theater Works production of The Last Lifeboat. So with that, I am turning this over to Mallory.
Well, thank you very much for that lovely introduction. And here is an excerpt from chapter 2. After a year of sweeping up fiber dust, rat droppings, and the occasional dead rat, Amelia knew just what sort of grime hid in every corner of the Mableville cotton mill, including the sort who drank whiskey shots in the loading dock between shifts. The women without support, financial or otherwise, worked 12-hour days alongside men who left the worst jobs for the ladies, like gleanings on the edge of a field. All female employees started pushing brooms, then moved up to either operate overgrown mechanical beasts with sharp teeth or haul enormous tubs filled with seed cotton across the factory floor, their floor-length black skirts scattering the piles of Amelia's menial work. Unmarried women also had the additional requirement of living in the factory's on-site dormitory. Unlike at the orphanage, the factory dorm felt grand, almost luxurious, with just 10 women in a large room with iron bunks only 2 high. With more space and fewer bodies, the inherent frenzy felt distant and Amelia could breathe, though she'd grown to hate the smell of tobacco. The middle-aged loader in the next bed, Beatty, snuck out at night to smoke cigarettes, and by the morning whistle at 4 a.m., the whole area reeked. The ritual of groans and cursing in the wee hours comforted Amelia as she tied up her boots. She always dressed before the others, and then sat on the edge of her bunk watching the delicate shadows before dawn. The darkness created the illusion of solitude, and she found a calm that she didn't have the rest of the day, especially with having to spend so much time with her assigned bunkmate, Vivian. "I hate the dang whistles," Vivian said in a dry voice as she swung her legs over the edge of the top rail and dangled her feet so Amelia saw the holes in her stained knee-high stockings. Like many of the women, Vivian began each morning listing her grievances like a prosecutor in front of a judge. The food tasted rancid, possibly even lethal. She'd had to patch her flimsy work blouse at least a dozen times, and the permanent mold in the bathing area had grown eyes like potatoes. "Dang whistles," Vivian said again as she hopped down from her bunk and landed in front of Amelia. Amelia stood. Her sleek auburn hair, delicate features, and tall, womanly stature created a stunning contrast to Vivian's puny, boyish frame and mess of black curls, which bounced when she walked. Even though Amelia stood 5 inches taller than most of the ladies, when Amelia shook her head at Vivian, the feisty girl lifted her chin, put her hands on her hips, and said, "What, you like it here?" Liking had little to do with tolerating, a fact Amelia thought it was about time Vivian learned. "You've been here 6 months already and you still don't understand. In a place like this, you need to know a few tricks," Amelia said. She looked around, then leaned forward and motioned with her index finger for Vivian to move in closer. Vivian's breath mixed with the tobacco fumes. "So I'm going to do you a favor. You get me some toothpaste powder and some for yourself while you're at it, and I'll teach you a couple tricks." 1 week later, Amelia returned after her shift and found a small package wrapped in brown paper on her pillow. Being so far from town made getting simple supplies an annoyance, but even so, she most enjoyed the delightful rush of adrenaline from getting others to do her bidding. She'd mastered how to gain a scrap of control by watching the boys lord toys and snacks over each other. Since Vivian fulfilled her end of the bargain, Amelia agreed to teach her a few perks about living with a surplus of women. Amelia and Vivian began by trading plump peppermint drops for small chunks of lye soap. For weeks, dorm mates called them suckers for their foolish dealings, and while Amelia ignored the criticism, Vivian asked constant questions, unsure of the plan even after repeated explanations. When at last the final Saturday of the month arrived, with paychecks and time off for escorted evenings into town, most of the ladies had used up their soap. Lest their burly companion find them offensive after a week of hard labor, soap became a rare and expensive commodity. Work continued, and with the summer humidity as thick as a well-fed chigger's, came an erupting disquiet among the workers. In the midday heat, tempers flared and loaders passed out from dehydration. Management called a meeting and crammed all 150 employees together in the thin shadow of the loading dock, their mass body heat far worse than the stagnant air in the factory. "We'll not discuss shorter sleeves or thinner skirts for the women," the supervisor replied to a shouted comment about the men with rolled up sleeves. "For those of you with good sense and savings, I have a special announcement." The P.T. Barnum's Museum, Menagerie, and Circus had ventured to Little Rock and those who worked enough extra hours could take 2 days off to travel to the city, at their own expense, of course. A round of groans did nothing to sour Amelia's mood. As one of the few who worked extra to pass the time and spent a lifetime stashing her money, she couldn't wait to get away for a few days, to go anywhere, for anything. She smiled. She'd never been to the circus. A few days later, Amelia stood on the platform of the Alexander train station, a lone room with a few cracked wooden benches where an elderly man sold tickets and took naps. She traveled alone because few of the other ladies could go, and management forbade her to travel with any of the men for fear of gossip. The train stopped only long enough for passengers to board, so within a few moments the conductor yelled for all to board. Amelia scrambled to pick up her shoulder bag and then darted into the nearest door as the train began to move. On the train from Montana, Amelia's second-class seat consisted of a hard wooden chair beside a latched window smeared with dirt and flanked on either side by a thin swath of grimy green cloth that served, with little success, as a curtain. Amelia moved into the depths of the car and immediately noticed the smell. Instead of the stench of body odor mixed with the sour food and moods, she sniffed linseed oil and sweet lilac. She stepped further into the train, her feet cushioned by plush carpet, and saw red brocade fabric over padded seats. Small glass fixtures lit the first-class car with a soft glow, and the wide rows gave each passenger plenty of room to stretch out without draping legs over neighboring seats. Amelia knew she should walk through the breezeway back to her class, but the opulence felt like a cozy blanket after years of shivering in the cold. Instead of going back to her place, she sat in a lone empty seat beside a man holding up a newspaper. When the man didn't stir, she decided to stay just a few minutes. Amelia had never seen a ring on a man, especially one with so many diamonds surrounding an enormous blue sapphire, no less than 5 carats by her estimation. She wanted to compliment the man, but held her tongue. She didn't belong and thought best to stay quiet. "Tickets, please," Amelia heard before she had time to take even one more inhale of the lovely clean aroma. She didn't look up, but felt the conductor looming over her as she fumbled in her satchel and then handed him her second-class ticket. Amelia waited for her scolding, but then the conductor looked from her to the man seated beside her and then back again. She followed the conductor's surprised stare until she saw that the stranger held out $5 from behind his newspaper. The conductor snatched the money, and Amelia's benefactor waved the man away as if swatting a fly. Thank you, sir, but I can't repay you," Amelia said. "You already have," he said as he lowered his paper shield. Amelia smiled at a gentleman in his early 60s, stocky, a fringe of white hair around a shiny bald center with flowing white mustache and trimmed Van Dyke beard. He was well-groomed in a linen suit with pearl buttons and a red rose in his buttonhole. "Sitting beside a beautiful young woman is payment enough. I enjoy the jealous looks from the others on board." Amelia glanced around the car and saw a few men sneaking peeks at her. She hadn't noticed them and found repugnant the idea of being thought of as a decoration. "So, a lady is nothing more than an accessory?" she asked. The gent chuckled and then nodded and smirked in a way that made him look both clever and sincere at the same time. "Can you think of a better description for yourself? You're too young to have accomplished anything yet, so you must use what nature has given you. Be grateful, my dear. Not every lass is as lovely as you. If you were a homely girl, you might be sitting on those hard benches in the back." But that's... Amelia had never heard anyone speak with such candor, while at the same time making her feel respected. He hadn't mocked her as so many she'd met, and though she didn't fully agree with him, she liked the idea of the influence she commanded and looked again at the men who continued to watch her. "Are you suggesting that I'm treated differently because of my..." Amelia felt arrogant saying any more. "Of course. We're all judged at least some by our appearance. That's just human nature, my dear, and nothing more. True, there are some who take the whole physical appearance, vanity, too far, but those are true dullards. Intelligence is knowing your strengths and using them to the advantages of yourself and the world. Are we not here on God's green earth but to serve others? He asked. The man then lifted the newspaper back in front of his face, but Amelia stopped when the gentleman wiggled his index finger at her. Read physical cues, my dear, and you will go far in this world. She waited, but he didn't say anything more. He continued with his newspaper, and she sat silent, unsure what to do but watch the passing trees through the spotless windows. As the train slowed to exchange passengers in Sweet Home, Amelia sat up and straightened her ruffled blouse. She wanted to ask him what else she could do to go far in the world, but as soon as the train stopped, the man stood. I leave you here, my dear. Your passage is paid to the end of the line. Good luck in your endeavors, whatever they may be, and if you use your lovely appearance to the betterment of society, then indeed you've made good use of your special fortune. He gave Amelia a slight bow, placed a sloped Homburg hat on his head, then handed her his newspaper. She watched him leave, and then, with nothing else to do, she snapped open the day's Washington Post, just like the white-haired stranger. Thank you.
That was fun. That was so much fun to hear. Thank you to Mallory for doing that. Grant always laughs that I made her very tall. How to make her tall? I don't write about myself. So I have to have a few thank yous, and then we'll kind of get back to food and fun. And we've got plenty of time, so please enjoy the evening. The reason I have Mallory reading and how I'm able to do that, where's Peggy? There she is. We need to thank Peggy Woods. So Peggy works with Stories on Stage, and they put on these great productions of reading aloud by actors, different stories. So when I didn't want to do this, I texted Peggy and I said, hey, can you help me? And she just graciously jumped right in. So thank you, Peggy, so much for finding Mallory for me. Really appreciate that so much. And I want to thank, too, all the writers that are here tonight. Thank you all to the writing community. I think Sacramento has a wonderful writing community. It's such a strong and supportive group. And there's, gosh, I made notes here. The Historical Novel Society is here. I see a few people. The California Writers Club and Sacramento Stories on Stage I just mentioned. So thank you all. I know some people have traveled some distance. So thank you all. I think other writers, we appreciate the challenge it is to get this far. So it's really nice to see you all here. So thank you all for coming. Okay, so I have to give a huge shout out. Now, ladies from Girls Love Mail, I need you to stand or wave your hand. Please, where are my Girls Love Mail people? There's one back there. I see Nancy, there's Mindy, hey, Judy. Okay, Katie's over there. Come on, big hand. Okay, so where's Pearl? So, ladies, without the Girls Love Mail volunteers, I could not do this. They really keep things going. I know I'm kind of the face of it, but honestly, I could not read 66,000 letters by myself. So thank you so much for supporting me and taking care of things when I'm off doing the writing, for being here tonight and for helping me. And they're a wonderful, wonderful group of women, and they're dedicated. They've been coming, they come every week and they read letters and they package them and they help me and they give me great ideas. So thank you all so much. I know you're scattered around, but thank you so much. Now, there's a few ladies here. I think where they are. There's a couple over there. There's two. There's one. All right. So I hate to even call it this, but I'm in a critique group. Is that what we call ourselves? I don't think we're just that. So I write with, there's three amazing women. They have been on this journey with me, and we bring each other work, we critique each other, we give each other feedback, and a lot of support, and we hold each other's hands, and we talk about our lives. And you guys have meant so much to me. I get emotional. But honestly, writing is a very hard challenge. It's definitely a roller coaster. And without these ladies, it's been there all the way through, even harder. So a huge thank you. Renee Thompson, who's over there, Nora Magna, and Kristen Williams. And thank you so much, you guys, for being here and for helping me. And we got to go celebrate way back when I signed the contracts, gosh, a year and a half ago. We all went and celebrated with some champagne and dinner. So thank you guys so much for everything. All right. I've forgotten anybody? Is there anybody else to thank? Let me think now. Is there anyone else? Grant, come on up here. Come on. You come up here. All right. So, you guys, Grant. All right. So, honestly, yeah, please, you guys can join me in a round of applause. I say this all the time. I don't think he believes me, but honestly, it's true. I would not be able to do any of this without Grant and his love and support and all that he does. And yeah, pick it okay. So I had a little story. I was thinking about what to say, you know, and trying to think of a little story. And so I was thinking back. So Grant, when I first started writing this historical fiction and really took novel writing seriously, I wrote my first book, which is actually the letters book. Long story, but the letters book I actually wrote first. But that doesn't matter. I was working on that letters book, and I had a draft, and I wanted Grant to give me some feedback. So we took it with us to Florida. We were going into Florida for vacation. So we were in Florida, and it was very kind of off season, so it was quiet. So a nice quiet day by the pool, but it was hot. Florida, right? Yeah. And so he's sitting there with a manuscript, it's hot, and then we're noticing how many bugs there were. There was bugs, I mean, yeah, there were bugs everywhere. I mean, just, it kind of be really gross. I was looking over, and here he was sweating with the bugs, you know, doing this, and trying to read, and I thought, okay, this man is dedicated. I mean, if he's gonna do that, I have got to work hard enough to finish this. I cannot let this go. So he really did inspire. I know it sounds silly, but he really did. It was such an awful situation. We finally did go get a cabana, like we just snuck into one and closed. I mean, it was awful. But his just doing that for me is what inspired me to keep going. Isn't that silly? But so Grant really is. He's my editor. He's a proofreader. I made notes. He's my cheerleader, a supporter, story editor. If you don't like anything, it was probably Grant's idea, because he likes to give me like, oh, you should do this. And you're like, that's not gonna work. And anyway, and so he is honestly my #1 fan, and honestly, I am his #1 fan. So Grant, thank you. All right, so I have nothing else. Anyone else want to say anything? We should get going back to, oh, someone have her hand up? Oh, I thought she had her hand up. I'm like, question? Question from the young audience? Well, thank you guys all for coming. Like I said, we have plenty of time. I've been signing some more books. Feel free to buy 1, 2, 5, 7, you know, as many as you like. And that's all I got.